Welcome to the Fill the Funnel podcast with Jeff Swan
and Tom Slocum.
We're here to help you crush your targets
with tactical tips and insights you can act on today.
Don't have a fancy tech stack, a big budget, or even a huge team to lean on?
Well, it's time to get that solved today with FTF Fridays.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fill the Funnel Fridays with your hosts, Jeff Swan and Tom Slocum. We got a really exciting guest for us today, Hunter Collins, who has two amazing roles. He's actually the sales manager at DronePros and is an SDR at enCompass Technologies. And why Hunter has joined us today is that we want to talk about a really cool topic of approaching nonverbal communication in a virtual world. So, as you know, the world has kind of gone pretty virtual, even with companies trying in their darndest to get people back into the office. Everybody's fighting it to the nth degree and even causing what's called the Great Resignation. With that said, we don't really feel like, I don't know, guys, do you really think that the virtual working situations is going to stop? Do you think that these big companies are going to stop it? Or do you think that virtual is here to stay and it just might be something a little different moving forward?
You know, my thoughts on that are I think it's going to kind of evolve into a hybrid of that, really, which is kind of what my company, enCompass Technologies, is currently doing. For their newer employees, you know, they're required to be in the office every day. But then as you get a little bit more experience with our more experienced employees, it's more of a hybrid thing where they're required to be in the office maybe once or twice a week. And then beyond that, you know, they can work from home as long as they are proving that they're able to be productive in a remote setting.
Gotcha. No, see, that's the thing. It's all about like that trust, right? What I'm hearing from you is that it's about proving that you can be good, right?
Right.
So I was talking to my wife the other day about how like larger organizations have this weird feeling. They have this weird feeling that like they need to check in like crazy, right? So these organizations, they keep needing to check in, and you know that check-in is, on one hand, it's meant to keep you connected to your team, but on the other, is it really, or is it more actually for micromanaging?
Hold on. Sorry. Tom just said that he's not getting any audio from me on Zencastr. I am on there.
I'm getting audio from you.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to make sure. Sorry about that.
That's okay. No worries. So I'll just recap real quick. So what we're talking about is that people, like companies, they tend to have the propensity to want to check in. So they want to check in with their teams while they're working remotely. And on one hand, it's meant to, keep everybody engaged and keep everybody together. But on the other, I personally feel like it's a lot more to do with control and micromanaging. Maybe I'm a little bit biased or negative on this, but love to hear your take on that.
No, I think it's a little bit of both, right? So at one of the previous companies I was at during, the worst of the pandemic, it definitely felt like it was more of a control thing. And I think that is a big thing for a lot of companies, because I guess they're all worried about, a pretty big thing, which is making sure that people aren't just messing around while they're at home. Because when you're in the office, you've got a lot less distraction going on. But when you're at home, for myself, I could be playing with my dog, playing guitar, even hopping on video games. Now, I'm not saying I would do that, but, there is that, immediate draw towards that when you're in downtime. And I think that a lot of companies want to make sure that their employees who are working remotely are truly using their time as best they can.
Right. No, that makes sense. We've got a lot of sales leaders that listen to Fill the Funnel, and they're probably sitting there wondering, how do I maintain this level of productivity and this level of results and success when you have your kids that are home that you have to watch, or your dog needs to go out every hour or whatever. There's so many, or like you said, the that Xbox just sitting there calling your name,
Exactly.
Right. And it's this old world of thinking where distractions are these things that are going to take you away from doing your job. But I think over the last year and a bit, I can only attest to, the people I've worked with and the members of Rev League, that our members and our clients have done amazing things on their own, really focusing on their results and not focusing on the time. And it's been so impressive to see how dedicated people are, not really giving a crap about the confines of an office or this old world thinking. And they're just really focusing on, okay, I have my target. That's how I make my money. That's how I pay my rent or my mortgage or put my kids through college. I'm just going to get it done. And please leave me alone.
And, I think that's kind of speaks to just salespeople as a whole, because we have our own drive, right? Like if we're not hitting our numbers, if we're not surpassing our numbers, we're not making the money that we need to survive. And so, it really boils down to, well, are you a self-motivated salesperson or not? Because if you're not, then in a remote setting, you're a lot less likely to succeed than if you're really driven and you've really got that motivation going behind you.
Right. Yeah, well, you're right, though. It's like the people that end up going into sales roles, they tend to have that innate drive. I want to earn my own living. I want to build my wealth and whatever else, right? So you are dealing with a different class of person. And so on that note, knowing that, we've proven the sales role can be done from your bedroom, right? Your sales room can be done from the road on your way to between cities. Like I'm going to visit Tom in Arizona. I'm going to go on a road trip. I can do my sales job from my car on the way down to visit Tom.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like there is no limits. And right. And look to realtors as an example, a group quite well, Hunter. They literally live out of their cars. They do everything out of their cars or temporary offices. They do not need to be in an office, and they make as much money as any sales rep out there.
Yeah. I mean, the same goes for another job that I used to have. I used to be a beer rep. So I worked for a few different breweries selling their beer. And it's the same thing, right? You're always on the road visiting accounts. And that goes the same for distributors. I mean, so many different types of sales jobs. People are always on the road, and they're already having to be able to do their jobs remotely. So, I mean, what's to say they couldn't be doing it full-time remotely, right?
Right. No, it's so true. And so in that regard, then when you're looking at, so let's get back to the topic of today's session, is that establish the fact that virtual is here to stay in some way, shape, or form. Right. How can we approach nonverbal communication as, we're out there trying to fill our funnels. We're out there trying to make connections with strangers. How can we approach nonverbal communications to really crush it?
Right. And one of the big things is, I think, especially on cold calls, it's not so much something that you run into a lot when we're doing something like this, where, we can see each other and that nonverbal communication means a lot more. But I think people lose sight on the fact of how important nonverbal communication is, even on a cold call, right. Because of the different aspects of nonverbal communication, they're still going to play a part in those cold calls.
Right. No, it's true. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, you'll probably notice on a lot of Zoom meetings that half the people you see are standing up. Right. They're at stand-up desks or whatever else. People are dressed to the nines, even though they're at home, or they have their hair done or whatever else, what have you. Right. And there's this old saying, there's old sales advice that rings true today, is that even just by smiling and making an upright posture, right, when you're on the phone, is going to make you that much better at making the call. Right. People can hear you smile. It's amazing to think. It's the truth, though. People can hear you smile.
Oh, totally. Right? Yeah. I mean, you're sitting there with a blank, stare on your face. It's going to convey in your tonality.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah. So what are other forms of nonverbal communication besides like posture and smiling that you can do over a phone or a Zoom call?
Well, I mean, gesturing, for instance, I always feel like I'm getting a point across more when I'm gesturing, whether I'm face to face with someone or not, whether I'm on a virtual call or not. And I think the same goes for cold calling, because when you're gesturing, first of all, it conveys confidence, right? Think about someone when they're giving a public speech. If they're standing there, kind of with their hands in front of them, just kind of covering up, they seem guarded, they don't seem open, and they don't seem confident. Whereas if, they're making wild gestures and whatnot, they're obviously comfortable with themselves, they're comfortable with their product, and that helps to convey that. And I think the same thing goes for a cold call as well.
No, it's very true. And like, one of the things that I was taught very, very early on in my sales career was it was in retail sales. So it was like obviously very basic, but nonverbal communication of, nodding when you're trying to tell something, right?
Right.
So nodding, get the other person nodding, get them thinking. Now on a phone call, you're not going to do that. It's not going to be helpful for you for getting the other person to mirror your body language. But what you can do by nodding and getting into that mindset, you're getting yourself into that positive mindset. You're getting yourself into that agreeable nature that is required to get the yes.
Exactly.
Right. So I can see that. And it's funny too, watching a show with my wife the other day, and it was about the majority of the people in the show were Italian. And so, you have that stereotype of like talking with the hands or whatever.
Right.
And like, it's so true though. I talk with my hands. I'm not in any way, shape, or form Italian, but I talk with my hands. And I find that when I do that, when I pick myself up, talk with my hands, smile, put my posture right, I find I have better conversations, and I find that I can perform better, whether it's recording a podcast, being on a webinar, doing a cold call, or doing a sales call, or even training some of my clients. Like, no matter what I do, I find that hand gestures, posture, all these things, they literally turn me into super Jeff.
And I agree. So the big thing for my background, how I kind of got my start in sales, and what my big deciding factor for going into sales was my dad. My dad was actually a sales coach, and he realized, it was a story I actually kind of threw up on Red League about, if you ask him and you ask me when I got my start in sales, his answer would be vastly different than mine. And so, a lot of his work was dealing with high-level executives and high-level sales executives, teaching them how to present properly and how to communicate properly. And a lot of that was nonverbal communication. And so, it's a little bit different these days. You're not going to be, two of the big factors that he always talked about were eye communication and movement, where on a virtual call like this, eye communication is still a big player, right? But movement, not so much, because you're not going to be walking back across the room and stuff like that. But I mean, it's one of those things that people do lose sight of.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's difficult. Like, for one thing, I'm used to being the taller guy in the room and taking up more space and all these other things. On virtual, I can be smaller than everybody else, and nobody really knows.
Yeah,
I mean? Like,
I understand that probably about as best as anyone, because I'm 6'8", so I'm used to being the tallest guy in the room at any given moment.
There you go. See, look at that. And especially as like a beer rep, you're noticeable when you're walking in. You're used to having that presence, right? And a lot of times with us taller folk, you tend to, and I'm not by any means 6'8" or anything like that, but like that presence is part of how I've been successful, right? So, when I was on the retail floor, I didn't know shit. I didn't know nothing. Like, I was just kind of working on my smile and my personality the whole time. Then I got better, obviously, throughout my career, but like, it was so important, right? And then, of course, going door to door, all that kind of stuff. Your personality is what sells it. So, if I'm going to be honest, it's been difficult for me these last 3 years by being completely remote. And this has happened way before COVID, but being completely remote is taking that presence and turning it into virtual.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, so that's, again, kind of where sometimes that nonverbal communication plays a part, is how do I then convey my personality and my presence that I can usually convey in person? How do I convey that virtually?
And how do you? So you mentioned your hands, you mentioned your gestures. We talked about posture and smiles. Like, how do you convey that big personality, Hunter?
Well, and I think a lot of it, it's nonverbal in the sense that you're not using your words, but tonality again, right? And I have a big personality, and so I just try to, and I think I could do a good job of conveying that with my voice. And, a lot of it comes into inflection and tonality. And, a lot of people are too quick to just kind of make sure that they have always a positive tone or always an upbeat tone and stuff like that. But it's kind of like how you tailor a sales pitch to a given type of customer. You also kind of want to, you want to tailor your tone so that you're matching whatever prospect you're on the phone with, which can vary whether or not you're talking to someone who's in sales, who they tend to be more upbeat, like the three of us, or if you're talking to a director of operations or an IT individual who they're a little bit more reserved. And so it's kind of thinking about that on a higher level and thinking about what type of person am I dealing with and how do I match my tone and personality to them.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense because like, as a dad, I bring out the dad voice every now and then, like I'm nice and I'm happy and we're good. Oh, Allie, you're my best girl, blah, blah, blah. And then, hey, stop doing that.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm not a dad yet, but it's kind of the same thing with my dog, to be honest. And so many of my friends have been like, hey, when you have kids, man, you've already got that dad voice down.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Hunter. Well, I think I might have mentioned that this is a relatively short podcast. We like to get punchy and whatever else. If you want to leave our guests with one thing before I go into the wrap up here, what would you recommend for somebody who's trying to, bring that big personality into the screen? So what would one thing?
One thing. Like I said, a lot of us salespeople are outgoing individuals. You have to be outgoing to be a salesperson. Just be yourself, and show a passion for your product and do the best that you can to convey that over the phone. I mean, it's not the most direct way of saying something, but, be yourself and have fun, and that goes a long way when it comes to being on a cold call.
Oh, I love that, Hunter. No, I really appreciate that. Appreciate you coming here and joining us. So just to have a quick wrap up. So if we're really looking at it, no matter what happens, no matter how hard companies try, the virtual work from home is not going away. Like Hunter said at the beginning of the show, it's very likely to be more of a hybrid where you're going to go into an office of some sort and work from home and just have like this mix of things. But either way, you're going to have to be a master of virtual communication or nonverbal communication from the phone and from your computer. Okay. So how Hunter recommended doing so is number one, let's start with your posture, your position, and make sure that you are in game shape, I guess you can say, right? Have a big smile on your face. Use hand gestures to kind of communicate and bring that energy. Some people even like doing pacing because it works. Not very helpful on a Zoom screen, but it can be helpful on a call, just because it gets you moving, gets the blood flowing. And then finally, we want to think about your tone of voice. So don't be monotone, be yourself, leverage different inflections and all these different things to convey the meaning behind your words and make sure that people understand you're serious, but you're also fun. You're also somebody they want to hang out with. So again, Hunter, thank you so much for joining us. To our listeners, enjoy and happy hunting. Bye. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fill the Funnel podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit subscribe on your favorite platform, give us reviews, and tell all your friends about us. Till next time, happy hunting.